So good evening, and welcome to the 5-day study circle. And here we reflect on the words of Mother and Sri Aurobindo, and as well as the teachings of other mystics are welcome as well. So I actually wanted to start today. I wanted to just be, kind of reflect a bit on doubt. There's so many places where we find mothers saying, okay, just place your faith in me, right? Place your faith in divine, just kind of, like not her exact word, but you let go, right? Like give me the driving seat, give the divine the driving seat, and you will be taken care of. And yet we see the world, wanting to run after miracles. It's like, okay, if you go to that mystic, your wish will be granted, as if the power to get what you want is outside. But that's so contrary to what, say, Mother and Sri Aurobindo have said, or any real mystic. They all say it's all inside you. And the only thing that kind of, maybe not the only thing, but a very important thing that stops us is doubt, right? It's like you are throwing something, kind of an aspiration or a wish or a hope or a dream, and then you doubt it, and the doubt is like, it just, you are pulling it back, right? I want to do this, I hope I can do this, and but I can't do this. I'm like, I'm not good enough, I'm not intelligent enough, I don't have enough resources. So I think it's really important for us to reflect on that, because it's like we put in so much, and yet by certain tendencies, we kind of undermine our efforts, our lives, and everything. So yeah, let's just one or two things I picked up on doubt. It's not a big sharing, but I'll just share the screen. So here, Mother is saying that doubt is not a sport to indulge in with impunity. It is a poison which drop by drop corrodes the soul. Poison is poison. Like, if people say that, okay, it's just one drop of it, is it okay if I put it in your water? We will be like, absolutely not. It's the mat. I mean, the content is so hazardous. It's like it's against you, that one would not even want, 1/8 of a drop or to be anywhere near it. And yet here Mother is saying that poison which drop by drop corrodes the soul. That is doubt. We must decide to get rid of all doubts. They are among the worst enemies of our progress. Sometimes, like, when I also have to kind of start new projects, and I think since the beginning, it's like, there's something which wants to leap ahead, and it has that, that joy, that confidence, that expansion that is needed for anything. And yet I see small movements which are saying that, would you be able to do it? Like, do you have it in you? So I feel that somewhere we forget that it's not the I who will be doing it. It's the power through me which has to do it, right? And that, in the, in my doubt, I make it small. I make myself small. I kind of reject the power, and I don't let the flow through. So I was reflecting on this morning only, and it felt, like, that kind of, that phrase we have, that sky is a limit. But, why should sky also be the limit, right? Like, if we could, aspire to live as if even the sky is not a limit, what a beautiful life there is. And yet, unknowingly, how small we make it, how limited, how delineated. Before I just one more sharing on this. Before that, does anybody want to say anything? Like, because I've been speaking for too long right now, for straight 4 minutes. Anybody want to share anything on doubt?
You're right, Taru. Doubt comes from ignorance. Doubt comes from fear. And doubt comes from the lower vital or the central vital, but the push, the confidence in the power, which is counteracting that, comes from the upper vital, the higher vital, which is required for us to progress. So doubt is a total no. Even without any spiritual background, if we find a person who is of a doubting nature or a character, we always say eliminate that, because शक सबसे बुरी चीज है. It can kill everything. So I think it's like which part of yourself you want to give food to, you want to feed, and then accordingly that grows. And doubt is very difficult to eliminate. And once eliminated, you have to cling to it so hard that I should not doubt. I've seen very close members of my family, very spiritual, but they doubt. That one thing negates so much of their progress. So you're totally correct.
Then one thing is pretty certain that it, I mean, if we just leave it, that it will go by itself. That might just take lifetime. So we have to consciously work on doubt. Like you say something, and as soon as you see some movement arising which is going against what you want to believe or what you're capable of, to kind of look at it and stop it or reject it or laugh at it, whatever we want to do at that time, is a very conscious movement, and knowing that it would always be there, right? Like we always usually, the slightest feeling or the movement, if it can be rejected or looked at in awareness, that would be such a good step. Like I was listening to Alok Da, a talk by him the other day, and there he said that, in a regular life, we are led by the ego, right? So somebody had asked me, what is yoga? Asked him. And he said, yoga is when you are led by the divine, when divine is the center of your being, as in not center of your being, but towards which you would want to go, towards which you are going, then you're doing yoga. That's your own path of yoga. But if everything you are doing is towards your ego, then that is like a regular life without the yoga. So I think, in the sense, it feels like a duty. Like, I don't like to use this word, but I'm still using, to actually consciously work on our doubt if we are looking for, I don't know, I would say sudden expansion, right? Like to just eliminate, like we know for sure that this is something that is pulling me back or that holds me or limits me. So I think that's such a, I don't know, great thing to realize and consciously work on, or maybe I'm just too excited thinking about it. So I will share the other small expert and then, yeah, okay. So it says doubt and yoga. We'll just read the second paragraph. So here it says that if the spirit of doubt could be overcome by meeting it with arguments, there might be something in the demand for its removal by satisfaction through logic. But the spirit of doubt doubts for its own sake, for the sake of doubt. It simply uses the mind as its instrument for its particular dharma, and this not the least when that mind thinks it is seeking sincerely for a solution of its honest and irrepressible doubts. It was a long line, I'll read it again. If the spirit of doubt could be overcome by meeting it with arguments, there might be something in the demand for the removal by satisfaction through logic, but the spirit of doubt doubts for its own sake, For the sake of doubt, it simply uses the mind as its instrument for its particular dharma, and this not the least when that mind thinks it is seeking sincerely for a solution of its honest and irreplaceable doubts. Mental positions always differ, moreover, and it is well known that people can argue forever without one convincing the other. To go on perpetually answering persistent and always recurring doubts, such as for long have filled this ashram and obstructed the sadhana, is merely to frustrate the aim of the yoga and go against its central principle with no spiritual or other gain whatever. If anybody gets over his fundamental doubts, it is by the growth of the psychic in him or by an enlargement of his consciousness, not otherwise. So if anybody gets over his fundamental doubts, it is by the growth of the psychic and enlargement of his consciousness, not otherwise. Questions which arise from the spirit of inquiry, not aggressive or self-assertive, but as a part of a hunger for knowledge, can be answered. But the spirit of doubt is insatiable, satiable, and unappeasable. So how strong the roots are inside us of doubt.
Again, the psychic is, only that psychic will have that belief, no? That whole lot of faith. It won't doubt at all, no? Actually, that psychic, And also, the last line, you put there?
Yes, I'll put it. I'm so sorry.
The last line of questions which arise from the spirit of inquiry. How beautifully Sri Aurobindo is saying. This is Sri Aurobindo's word or mother's?
I'm sorry. Letter.
Sri Aurobindo, He's beautifully telling, no, actually, not, spirit of inquiry. If the question is from the spirit of inquiry, was a part of hunger for knowledge, that can be answered. Very beautiful. Nirodharan, one of the sadhak there, no, he used to ask so many questions to Sri Aurobindo, but in this spirit, actually, spirit of inquiry. So Sri Aurobindo answered so many questions of Nirodharan so that we also can derive from that. Thankfully asked so many questions. He himself mentioned that Nirodharan. Once he started asking questions, it seems, he never expected any answer from Sri Aurobindo, but because he seems to be aloof that time, actually, Sri Aurobindo. But he started answering, he got with full interest to get answers. So that he raised so many questions and Sri Aurobindo answered. That is the real treasure. The correspondence with Sri Aurobindo is there, no? Big book, actually. Nirodharan's book is there. He used to ask so many questions regarding medical, because he's a doctor. He was a doctor. And also about sadhana. He used to tell, I don't know anything about sadhana. Why do you call me here? We are all not disciples like Vivekananda. We are all very raw. Why are you taking us? He used to ask Sri Aurobindo. Very interesting it will be. If you read the Nirodharan's questions and Sri Aurobindo's answers, no? He himself told at one time, I am always doubting, but he is very compassionate enough to answer all my questions, clear all my doubts. Beautiful, that is.
I feel actually doubt should be there in the initial stages when we get a call for a particular line of thinking. The advancement cannot take place if the doubt is that we have been talking about. So the doubts should come, genuine doubts, and those are in the form of questions. Actually, we have to get it clarified. Once that clarified, which is from inside, from the heart, and probably that faith will become so much that nothing can deviate from that route which is selected. So all those questions, even since Madam was speaking about Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda had a lot of doubts because he was a good student in the college, and when he met Ramakrishna Paramahansa, he had a lot of doubt because whatever he was telling he's a madman. Actually, Ramakrishna is a madman, but he wanted to prove it whether this is correct or not. He said that I cannot touch any metal. So what he did, he hid some coins under his bed. And the moment he touched the bed and he was jumping, that there is something biting me and all that. So then everybody was, nobody could see anything, no insect, nothing of that sort. So that the entire bed was dismantled, and then it was seen that there was a coin. And finally, he agreed. And Ramakrishna at a later date, he said that yes, this sort of query should be there. Before you decide yourselves, right? In Bhagavad Gita, they say that all that energy, once you have decided to go on a particular path, whatever you have in your store or stock within us, that is to be directed in that particular direction, and then definitely it will be achieved. Whatever we wanted to achieve in our life, probably we can direct all our energy and resources, whatever we have got, we have to decide. So before that, the doubts and all the doubts to be clear. So it's first of all that I have to have a eagerness to see that yes, I have to move in this path. Then that doubt comes. So all those doubts are to be fully clarified by the person only, not by others. Practically to be cleared. Practically to be cleared. So that is why Ramakrishna Paramahansa says that you have to meet that sadhu day, and you have to see him through night. You have to see this in whichever way you want to do the experiment. You carry on doing that experiment till you are satisfied. Once you are fully satisfied, and then your movement and your advancement will be very fast, because all the energy what we have, it's a tremendous amount of energy. Whatever is spiritual energy or whatever may be that energy, we have got enormous amount of energy. Once that is channelized, then everything will be directed towards that. So then enjoyment comes, and the life becomes very smooth, and we move in a particular direction very fast. Thank you.
On a personal note, I would say doubt comes from a negative location. Doubt is shock. It's doubt. It's negative. It's that you don't trust. It leans more towards mistrust. Whereas a query or a question is a positive thought. Swami Vivekananda had queries. He had questions in his mind which were not getting answered. So he wanted to clarify it to his own self. It was not to clarify it to Sri Ramakrishna or anything. No, it was to clarify it to him or his own self that is this true? So a doubt leans towards negativity, towards mistrust, distrust. Whereas a query or a question is genuine. You have a query which you want answered to give you that knowledge and that conceptualization that this thing is possible, or whether it is not possible, or why somebody behaves in a particular manner. So I think when Tharu raised this, the context in which Sri Aurobindo is answering is more that doubt is the negative aspect of the doubt. And if we at any time we speak on a day-to-day basis also, when we say that, I doubt this person's intentions. If you reflect on it, it will always be a search for something negative in that statement. It is never a positive doubt. You know, it leans towards negativity. But if you say, I wonder whether this does this actually happen? I mean, is it genuine? I must find out. Then you are leaning more towards a query where you want to clear whether it is the truth. So that's how I have understood it so far, being on the path, because I have seen a lot of doubting people, and they have always leaned to the negative aspect. In practical life, they always lean that way. So
Yeah, I think that it's like, I mean, we can use different words. Like, a lot of time it is used in common English that, I have a doubt. Can you clear it? It has been often used as that. So if we leave aside the words, I think like you were so beautifully saying, and Captain as well, that it's the center of where you're operating, right? Like if the center is kind of wanting to inquire, wanting to clarify, even if we call it a doubt, it's not harming anything, right? It's actually leading you to a greater growth. But like for me also, like you said, if I use the word doubt, it would be coming from the negative center, that I'm doubting something's power or force or possibility. That's how I kind of, when I started it, like you so rightfully said, was that how we kind of say something, aspire for something, want something, and then we take it back. We have all the power within us, and yet because of our doubt, our we don't believe in it fully ourselves, we doubt it, we take that power back. There was this quote also that I had seen, which just to doubt the experience is to discourage it. Let it be developed. See what is in it. But we don't have so much patience or faith mostly. We just, want to jump to conclusions. I want this, but would it be good for me? Am I coming from the right center? I mean, it's like sometimes it's needed, but even if we know, we kind of, there's a funny example from again my personal thing only. There was something that I was kind of wondering about, a big decision, something that I felt very negative about initially, and suddenly I felt a 180-degree change in myself. I started feeling an affinity towards that decision, and it really surprised me because I have kind of said negative things, or like not believed in that for like, I don't know, 40 years of my life, and suddenly I'm like, wow, it's giving me so much joy even thinking about it. So I was kind of doubting myself that something must be a problem, this can't be it, this kind of a thing. And then I was attending another session on the subtle body and subtle realms, and there the person said that mother has said that if an idea is kind of giving you innate joy, like especially if you focus on your solar plexus area and you wait for an answer, and all sometimes you hear a voice, the other times you would just feel sheer joy, that would mean that it's coming from the right center. So I laughed at myself that my joy was making me doubt what I was seeing, right? So I was like, my God, like, there are so many pitfalls, there are so many ways in which we want to stick and not let life be. So I've spoken too much today. I'll stop now. So anybody who wants to please share their sharings or anything on what we have discussed so far, please. Thank you.
Chitradi, what's your sharing today? Mine is a very, very peculiar one, so I think I'll go after you.
No, you proceed.
No, mine is a funny one. You do.
No
you
problem.
keep-
Yeah, no problem. You proceed. I will watch. I will then small ones about sincerity I have.
Then you do first.
I kept the book somewhere. I will bring you. You just proceed, Josna ji. I will bring the book. Yeah.
Okay. What is the ground? Yeah, it's from Mother. She spoke on 30th June 1929. The first line is, it is not an inevitable necessity. Yeah. Ah. Okay, now this has haunted me since quite some time, and I was searching till I found some answer, because I am petrified of reptiles, of snakes and lizards and all. All my logic is wiped out. So I was searching for an answer and I found this question: what is the ground of the repulsion that one instinctively feels towards certain animals, such as snakes and scorpions, and lizards are included? And Mother says it is not an inevitable necessity that one should feel this or any other repulsion. To have no repulsion at all is one of the fundamental achievements of yoga. So I said, there I go, I crash to ground zero again. I cannot do anything. The repulsion you speak of comes from fear. If there were no fear, it would not exist. This fear is not based on reason, it is instinctive. It is not individual, but racial. And it is a general suggestion and belongs to the consciousness of humanity as a whole. Then I just picked out a few important lines, and from another viewpoint, there is something very personal in the nature of an attraction or a repulsion. For these movements are not the same for everybody and depend mostly on the quality of vibration of the vital being in different people. There are men who not only do not feel any repulsion for creatures like snakes, but have even a liking for them, a vital attraction and preference. So then she says, all feelings of shrinking and disgust and fear that disturb and weaken the human mind can be overcome. Always you must remain calm, untouched, and unmoved. The strength of the yogi lies there. An entire calmness and quietness will disarm even dangerous and ferocious animals when they confront you. Then she uses such harsh terms. Repulsion is a movement of ignorance. It is an instinctive gesture of self-defense. But what best protects you against any danger is not an unreasoning recoil, but knowledge. Knowledge of the nature of the danger and a conscious application of the means that will remove or nullify it. The ignorance from these movements rise the ignorance from which these movements rise is a general human condition, but it can be conquered. For we are not bound to the crude human nature from which the external being starts, and which is all around us. Ignorance is dispelled by a growing consciousness. What you need is consciousness, and always more consciousness, pure, simple, and luminous. Then the rest is how you screen yourself, but this is when you are in a state of contemplation, a mere observer. When you are active, it is like a searchlight. The way to attain to this perfect consciousness is to increase your actual consciousness beyond its present grooves and limits, to educate it, to open it to the divine light, and to let the divine light work in it fully and freely. When you have no mental prejudices, no vital preference, no physical apprehensions or attractions to obscure or bind you. Repulsion is a movement of weakness. It comes because you have been touched and hurt and recoil from what hurts you. So, for you would see and know at once that there was something harmful there, and you put a barrier of defense around you. And even if the thing came near, it would not be able to touch you. You would remain unhurt and unmoved by its presence. Then she answers a very nice question with a very significant answer, which struck me. If the divine, that is all love, is the source of the creation, whence have come all the evils that abound upon earth? And she answers, all is from the divine, but the one consciousness, the supreme, has not created the world directly out of itself. A power has gone out from it and has descended through many gradations of its workings and passed through many agents. And there are many creators, or rather formatures, form makers, who have presided over the creation of the world. They are intermediary agents, and I prefer to call them formatures and not creators. For that, for what they have done is to give a form and turn nature to matter. There have been many, and some have formed things harmonious and been benignant, and some have shaped things mischievous and evil. And some too have been distorters rather than builders, for they have interfered and spoiled what was begun well by others. Is not this material world of ours very low down in the scale, in the system of worlds that form the creation? Ours is the most material world, but it is not necessarily low down. And the material world too is not the only world in which we live. It is rather one of the many in which we exist simultaneously, and in one way, the most important of them all. For this world of matter is the point of concentration of all the worlds. It is the field of concretization of all the worlds, and it is the place where all the worlds will have to manifest. At present, it is disharmonious and obscure, but that is only an accident, a false start. One day it will become beautiful, rhythmic, full of light, and for that is the consummation for which it was made. So it's not our fault that we are afraid of snakes. I I have been haunted by this because I've always feared reptiles, and I found that it was you know, something that struck me was the snake catcher who came, and he was totally fearless. And I asked him, I said, Shaji, you're not scared? And he said, no. So I said, do you love the snakes? He said, no. Then I said, you don't feel afraid? And he said, no, I have no fear. And I really thought he was spiritually so elevated, though he was just a snake catcher, but he had no fear. And here I was doing the rain dance, screaming my lungs out because there was a snake. But when I saw it on the second day, I was far calmer and I watched over it till it was caught. Because I was calling the mother that, you know, make me strong, stronger. This is not the silly way to scream. So probably that calmed me down. But this was a question that haunted me and I found formatures.
And it is very deep, Jyotsnaji, actually. Deep matters are there. Not only that, no, with connecting with that, there are, it is very deep. I find it very deep.
Yes, yes, there is a lot more to it
Mhm.
and a lot of learning to go into it.
And also, fearless people, you can't say spiritual, no, actually. There may be their constitution, no, actually. I'm
I
asking
don't
you.
know. There was such a calmness on this man's face. He was totally unfazed. I mean, it's a very rare thing, you know, to see some, like, I don't know if Chitradi, if you've ever seen a hangman, you know, the man who pulls the rope. I have met a couple of them when they used to come as patients when I was a student. And I asked them, don't you feel fear that that soul will come behind you and all? And the hangman said, I pray every day because this is it's my job. It has come to me through so many generations. And he was such a calm man, full of goodness. I couldn't connect.
Yeah, correct. We can't
So
say, we can't judge also, yeah.
we have a long way to.
Yeah.
I feel the more we quieten ourselves, stand back and you know, step back and observe, I'm learning far more than a discussion. Lot. It's small things. So I said I must put my vulnerability to y'all because maybe, you know, so many of us must be going through the same thing.
Yeah. Correct.
You know, unfound fears. Just
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, fears that don't seem to play any major role. They are just there to create, you know, some basic havocs and just, like you said, shouting and stuff. So I think that was a very interesting sharing, very unique. I want to thank you for that. I would not have stumbled upon it myself. And I mean, found it really thought provoking, and I would want to, you know, read it once or twice again after the session. What you were, you know, saying about.
Yeah, you kindly share that the group, yeah.
Okay, I will do that.
Yeah,
Okay. I
yeah.
always say that we should do it and it's not started. Yeah. So Josna ji, what you were talking about, the snake charmer or, you know, the hangman and stuff. I mean, I feel that it could also be a lot to do with how a person is raised, right? Like if say the snake charmer, say again is a generational snake charmer, not necessarily, but if he has seen his, you know, parent and maybe father and grandfather or grandmother for that matter, you know, just take snakes as anything else. Like, you know, how we see a fly and we want to just, you know, take something and push it out of the window. or a bee for that matter, right? It's as simple as that. Some people, they shout on bees or a cockroach or something, while others, they would hold it. And I feel that it, like, say my sister, my elder sister, she was quite fearless of all these small insects. So when I saw her, I didn't feel scared, right? When it was time for me to scare my younger brother. I did exactly the same, right? Because I thought that's the way to do it. And while other children would be like squeaking that, what are you doing? Why are you touching that dirty thing? So it's a matter, it's like somehow, sometimes we make things really big, much bigger than they are. And like it, uh, the thing that we read also said it, like it's about fear, right? Like if I look at the snake and they say most of the snakes are non-poisonous, right? And yet as soon as I say, it's like, okay, it might just, I might be over, right? So let me run. So we don't even give anything a chance because we are so in that defense mode. It's really interesting.
That repulsion, no? That repulsion is, yeah,
Yeah.
a very, very nice thing. You brought it. Thank you, Josna ji, really.
I do have one thing that I would want to reflect on together. The last paragraph. Here it says that two things. First of all, this was something that I came across very recently. The material world too is not the only world in which we live. It is rather one of the many in which we exist simultaneously. So it's really, I was reading a book of, dreams. I don't know what the full name of the book is, by Mother and Sure. I again don't know whether it's both of them or the mother, but it said the same thing. And I get a lot of like deja vus. Like I get things that, okay, I've seen this before, but when I saw it, there was a purple flower on the right side, and I would move toward the right and I would see a purple flower, something like this. So it didn't come as a surprise that we live in so many worlds simultaneously, but still it feels strange, right? Like they said, our focus is so much on the outer consciousness that we don't even realize where all we are going. Like right now, a part of me could be in a different world, another part of me could be in a different world, but all I can perceive is this outer world because that's what I'm limited to by my consciousness. So I found it really interesting. And it's like, how we say that we know things or this is my truth. It's just crazy that how so much I am going through and not seeing. It's just, I don't know, it like really humbles me, and I wish I can live in it more. But this is the one I wanted to basically reflect on. For this world of matter is the point of concentration of all worlds. It is the field of concretization of all the worlds. It is the place where all the worlds will have to manifest. So first, let's just take this half and then we'll take the second one. So any thoughts on this?
It is in this material world that everything, that the world that we are seeing, where according to what she says is that final manifestation will take place of the supramental and between all human beings, means it will be witnessed here. That is how I understood it. Means it will have where all the worlds will have to manifest. But even though at present it is disharmonious and obscure, we are getting there somewhere. Of course, I don't know how many million years away, but
Very interesting. Somewhere we hear that this is how it was created, so that we have a challenge and the dualities can coexist, and we can evolve and see and choose and make the right decisions, and yet an accident and a false start, and it's supposed to be the most beautiful and rhythmic. I mean, it just it's like unfathomable to certain degrees that what all is at play. Yeah, Chitra ji or Captain, if you have any views on this, otherwise we can move on.
I, I did one course as NLP, Neuro Linguistic Programming.
Yeah.
So I had like every human being, I think they have got a lot of fear. So it's a very important topic actually, because all of us in this world, physical world, are submerged in fear actually. Different types of fears everybody has got. So for living, we have overcome some of them, but the ignorance is the main thing which is not allowing us to know much better. So we need some supreme light probably, which will remove the darkness. So when I did that NLP, so initially I didn't know what is it actually. After doing the course, then I saw that whatever types of fear we have can be removed. But there is a procedure. That the procedure is to be followed, and it can be removed. But since the habit has been formed for a long time, so it may take longer. It's not that I just touch somebody and the fear goes off. No, not that. But there are ways and means by which the brain has been written, the format hard disk has been written in a particular way, so that hard disk, that writing has to be changed. So like if you are not having the fear like snake, that creepy feeling comes. So that is to be obliterated from the writing of the hard disk, and the thing has to come. That why the snake actually? We have to spend a little more time. That why the snake will have this thing. It's harmful actually. We feel the snake will bite and I will die. So I am very scared of death. So likewise, there are various type of thoughts, and it is instantaneously it comes into the mind. So for everything, somebody has got the height phobia, somebody has got the driving phobia, they cannot drive. Somebody has got the snake and lizard and all those cockroaches, and so all this can be practiced. That if I want, first of all, I have to have that willingness, that yes, I want to change myself, I wanted to remove this darkness or whatever may be the shortcomings or fear. So that has to come within. Once it comes, then there are various ways that can be overcome. So that's we learned in NLP course actually. So throughout the world, it has been practiced, and there are a lot of great people. They are practicing it, and they are getting the benefit of it. And they work as a motivator to some big companies and all this and all this. So all the companies, they are earning a lot of money, and but again there is a competition between the CEOs and all. So then we become advisor. So we go there and we can say that this is the way the things can be changed, because over a period of time we feel the ego and all, they pressurize us to go in a particular direction. We think this is the correct and this is the only solution. No, it is not. So that has to be opened up and taken care of, so that fear is really a harmful effect, and for which we are not in a position to progress actually in the desired path which you have decided. Thank you.
Captain, could you give a small example in which you were actually able to use it in your like day-to-day life, like how you were able to turn something, if it's possible, so that it becomes more clear? Like after the course, if you could actually work on something on yourself and that turned. Or you could share it next time. I mean, I don't want to put you on spot. I was just curious.
No, whatever I have learned and I have practiced, that can be, I can share sometime. So there is no problem.
Yeah, no, I was just wanting one example. You saw this in you and that's how you worked on it and that's how you were able to. I've heard a lot about this course as well. So I was just curious. Yeah.
I had one in the defense. I had one, not course mate, but was another officer, commissioned officer. So he was having cobra as a pet. So he was sleeping, and that cobra was used to be in that room only. So he has like some lizard and things like that. Those which are scared actually normally. No, we are scared to enter his room only because the snake will be there in the movie. So this he was having he was never bitten by anybody and not harmed and all. So once that fear goes, then our that mental faculty that opens up. And like my granddaughter was also scared initially. She's about 8 years old now. But what has happened is the one of the my son's friend. So they saw that you are scared of snakes. They say, I am having the snakes. They got the bait actually. It's just like a dog or a cat or anything of this nature. So then she was allowed to touch the she touch and see that it's not doing anything. And then she got like petting takes place now. In US. If you go there, the children they're taken to some zoo and all this, and some petting classes are there. So like she was petting, and now she's not scared of the snakes. So it was so simple because there's a child, the mind is clear. But for us, there are a lot of dirt and dust, and the thought process and logic and experiences. So that will take time. So probably this is one of the way actually it can be overcome. And all the great teachers of this NLP, they do the exactly same thing. The UK and in America, whenever they're conducting the course, particularly the snake and all these, those are scared. So they take snake to the stage and they hold the snake and they ask people to come and touch and see that whether anything is. No, it has not been done unless that person snake has got a threat for life or harm. Every creation of God has got that. So then only they will attack. Otherwise, I had experiences in my life where the snake has gone over me, but nothing has taken place. Nothing has taken place. I was sleeping on the floor and the snake gone over me because that was a rat snake. They wanted to catch a rat. So the snake has gone. There's nothing happened. And I was crossing some water. Suddenly that flood came. So I was walking through the field and then water. It became neck deep water. Then so then I was I had to swim and take. There was somebody who was there with me. He cannot swim and cross that canal sort of thing. And then I was standing there and deciding, and that it was a flash flood. So that all insects and whatever the reptiles were there, and all they started floating on the water. And those who can swim and cross. So that one of them, one of the snake, they got into my head and all this, and I felt something is there. Well, then I saw it is a snake. So I just put it aside. So nothing. The snake has touched my body, and I was also looking for a shelter actually. So that my head is on the top, so it was getting on the head. That is the place where water is not there. So this is my personal experience. It's like this fear leads us to some medical problems also for us at times. At times, I've seen that suddenly that adrenaline rush takes place and all, and the person collapses actually. Like those are having hypertension and other cases and all. So, though we are not having the statistics to prove that, but it is. It is. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Captain. Very interesting anecdotes and experiences. I wonder the poor snake on the stage where people would come and want to touch it. It would not be very happy though. Yeah.
I spoke to a lot of snake charmers. Out of curiosity, go and ask them that you're not scared of the snake and all. Then I remember very distinctly 3 or 4 of them telling me that we are not in fear of the snake because we removed the fangs, the poison fangs of the snake and the sac, which is located somewhere. They are aware of that and they have removed it. So they are absolutely fearless. I said, if they are fearless, then why do they do this to you? That as if they are being attacked. So he said, we keep the snake hungry. And so the snake thinks it's getting food. When we take that bagpipe and we put it towards them. So I had gone to San Diego Zoo, I still remember, in 93. And I asked the snake keeper there that how do you deal with so many poisonous snakes and all? He said, actually, ma'am, we don't handle them by hand unless their fangs are out. You know, the poison sacs are out. And once that is done, you keep it as a pet, you do anything, it's harmless. So basically, once the fear is removed of being poisoned, or it is a fear of the unknown where you don't know what that snake is, you know, whether it's poisonous or not. So unless proved otherwise, we human beings have a nature of thinking that everything is poisonous in snake, because there is a species, 2 or 3 species of snake that bite you in sleep. They come and they bite and they go, and they kill people. It happens a lot in villages. So it's not an unknown thing. They do bite also, but like water snakes are generally non-poisonous. I went to Gangaji 2 years ago. I was in Haridwar for 2 weeks. And every time I was taken for darshan, for a dip in Gangaji, I had to stand on stairs which was submerged under the water. And it was this thick a layer of snakes, water snakes. But because science and facts have told me that water snakes are not poisonous, I stood over there and the snakes went over me. No, that didn't give me a fear, because I was aware in my mental mind that it is a non-poisonous thing and nothing will happen. But when it's something unknown, oh, that I am still scared. I have seen families wiped out with, you know, milk boiled with a lizard in it and brought dead to us in the emergency, or we are trying to resuscitate them and they don't survive. And after that, I developed a fear. Till then, I had no fear. So I guess I have been struggling with this for a very long time. And I said, I must bring it out in the forum and see, maybe my vulnerability is correctable.
Jyotsna ji, what your latest sharing, reminded me of that Tulsi Doha. You know that Tulsi bharose Ram ke nirbhay hoke soe, अनहोनी होनी नहीं, होनी है तो होए. And if you have to die that way, you will die that way. Nobody can save you. And if nothing has to happen, the fear is again unnecessary. So just pray that, we, all of us, this is more of a dawning and more of a living every day, because yeah, but it's very interesting how it's not that the snake charmers or snake keepers are fearless. They are not scared of that snake that they are holding because they know it's not poisonous. So that's a very interesting point. In comparison to the snake charmer you mentioned before, who was just coming to grab your, the snake that was in your area, which he didn't know anything about. And yet he said, I'm not afraid. Yeah. For different levels of lives and existence. Nah? Yeah.
Chitradi sharing.
Yeah, Chitra.
No problem. It is very interesting topic, no? This repulsion, yeah, that's very important. We have to get relief from that repulsion. Even with cockroach, I have repulsion. So, very important topic. Each and everything, I think it will take so many births to to be fit for yoga itself. I feel like that.
So Chitraji, whenever you are ready, you can please share with us.
Yeah, about sincerity, you can go. Yeah, but this is not. I mean, this is one of the author Rishabh Chand book. He took a topic about sincerity, and He's discussing about sincerity by quoting Mother, actually, Mother's words. Yeah, I will read. Sincerity is a most difficult thing to have, but it is also the most effective of things.
Maybe it's not in the incarnate world, or am I putting something wrong?
Yeah, I don't know. Because the yoga of Sri Aurobindo, I will read the, the yoga of Sri Aurobindo, part 7 by Nolinikant Gupta. Okay. It is not by Mother.
This said sincerity, it was the more difficult to have and the most needful.
Yeah, sincerity is a most difficult thing to have, but it is also the most effective of things. I think it is said by Nolinikant Gupta. It is not by Mother.
This is it, right?
It's by Mother.
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
by Mother.
Mother only.
It's
Okay.
perhaps the most difficult.
Yeah. If you have sincerity, you are sure of victory.
Okay, so Chitraji, why don't you just read it? And
Yeah, I will read. Yeah. Sincerity is a most difficult thing to have, but it is also the most effective of things. If you have sincerity, you are sure of victory. But it must be true sincerity. Sincerity means that all the elements of your being, all its movements, each and every one, from the most spiritual to the most physical, from the inmost to the outermost, from the topmost to the bottommost, all parts, severally and wholly and equally, are turned to the divine. They ask for nothing else than the divine. They live for and by the divine. And this one I
altered
read.
by him. It's altered because what Mother says, Taru, you had opened,
Yeah.
it's more expansive.
Yeah, but in this, the quote is there, speaking on sincerity, the Mother says.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's
Maybe, there is spontaneous, no
no,
devotion.
not
or
this, Taru. Taru,
Yeah.
you had found it the first time. Yeah. Yeah, to perceive. No,
To-
go up. Go up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to perceive one's own weaknesses is one result of, if sincerity is a most difficult thing. I don't know. This book quotes.
that is okay. We can hear whatever.
Yeah, another important thing is there actually, but to be sincere in the very cells of your physical body is still a rarer achievement. To make the body cells so one-pointed that they too feel they cannot live but for the divine and in and through the divine. That is true sincerity, and that you must have. I don't know, when I read this today, no, actually, I just got stuck with this. I don't know. Yeah, the sincerity of the cells. First of all, the author also gives some explanation. I will read that also. We have seen what the Mother means by aspiration. Another basic element of the spiritual way taught by her is sincerity, which she regards not only as a basic element, but as the leaven of all basic and essential elements of spiritual life. If there is one thing that can open all closed doors and lead straight to the highest spiritual achievements, it is sincerity. And if there is one thing without which no substantial progress can ever be made and nothing abiding achieved, it is sincerity. A sincere aspiration, a sincere faith, a sincere prayer, a sincere endeavor can never go in vain. whatever the difficulties of the path, however long and arduous the journey, however feeble and faltering the steps of the traveler, if there is sincerity in him, God's grace will surely lead him on, firing his being, fortifying his will, and replenishing his failing strength and courage. This is really very nice to read, because I can say from my own experience, actually, I really longed for this type of groups, because I felt dry at one stage, I felt very dry. Even in the community, very large community I am living, I can't find any one of the person who is following. I'm not finding it as a cult and all, but I want to have some friendship or companionship with someone who is following this path, actually, integral yoga path. I sincerely long for it, really. This happened, even after a long time, this happened. This is a very small example I'm telling. Maybe you all can share. Yeah. This all happened and this is going on sincerely now. For a lot of gratitude for this sessions, really, to Mother, and yeah. Because all paths are here. People are here who are following other paths. They are of majority, but this is a path where we can say that the world is an illusion. It is then Mayavada. That all we can't. Follow also. But I have a satsang initially who are the followers of Advaitic principles. They all followed that path. They used to discuss with Bhajagovinda. I'm not saying it is wrong, but at one point, this principle and that won't go together, actually. Because there, Shankaracharya will always tell, actually, the world is an illusion. It is a creation of Maya. We have to escape from the world. We have to aim only for that, actually. In that group, I can't bring this. Something I can quote, not Sri Aurobindo's mother's principles I can't quote. So I have a doubt, and what is this I'm doing? I'm following this path, but entering into this satsang. But I need satsang, actually. So sincerely, I aspire for that. Whoever is following this path, I want to get. It's happening now. Yeah. This is my sharing. Yeah. Thank you.
One thing I personally find very intriguing is that there were always circles like this, right? And yet there seems to be a right time, right? Like once you are into something that you've been wanting, you wonder that how could you not know this before, or how could, because there's so many avenues, and yet the only answer that I get is it wasn't time, and now is probably the time. And today only I changed my deck.
Correct, you are correct. Yeah, that time has to. Yeah.
I like to share it. It's I think on the same thing. Can you see it? It says that if the need is a true one, the means to do it will come spontaneously, the mother. So, we don't have to, worry about that at all. It's like somehow even a progress can become a headache, right? I have to. How will this be taken care of? Again, that doubt and sincerity. We're just this reminder that things will be taken care of. And one more thing I want to share on this, that there was this thing that I attended in which, I'm sorry, one second. Yeah. So in which the person asked that how would you draw aspiration? So a lot of us, drew like say folded hands, or people drew fire. And then the person said that the symbol of aspiration is a triangle, kind of symbolizing again the folded hands or the fire. And one of the most beautiful things was that they said that when you draw aspiration, it's like two triangles below and five triangles above, that you do two and five will come down. And yet we have the arrogance to doubt. We have the will, the space to doubt. I mean, it's like, naman to us, and hopefully this will dissolve one day very soon for all of us, that we can believe, right, without the seed of doubt. Yeah.
From my practical experience of my exposure to Mother and Sri Aurobindo, Mother came to me um 33 plus years ago. And initially, I was gung ho with it, and my teacher was, guiding me a little, and my sister donated some books to me. And a stage came when I couldn't understand anything because I had no guide. Then my professional career took over. I was in my 20s, late 20s, and my professional career took over. I skyrocketed. I traveled abroad. I got it all. I joined the armed forces. But every time any question regarding life came, I took Sunlit Path because that was the book I could comprehend. And life went on. I would say 20 years went. Later, I realized that the universe conspires to make you meet like-minded people who teach you two things. One is what to do, but the more important learning is what not to do. And I followed people of sister factions. I came to Delhi ashram, I went to Pondi, I went to Junjunu, I went to Jaipur, and all Sri Aurobindo and Mother. And I learned a lot of what should not be done, what is not true to them, in a very subtle fashion. And I also learned that what we are supposed to do, and the universe kept conspiring, kept revealing to me that no, you go this way. And during that phase, I learned how to listen to that little voice. It was probably the initiation of, the opening of the psychic, where it would just squeak and tell me. And now at this stage, since the past 3 to 5 years, 7 years, I'm convinced that you will meet people uh, who will nurture you, who will feed this part of you, and the whole universe takes a turnaround and makes you reach a point where you are convinced that even if you're all alone, you are growing. For me, the lockdown and this COVID situation and Corona lockdown 2 years, for staying here abroad, it's opened a whole new world. And it's a world I wanted, and all the joys it gives you. So I can say with conviction, even looking at my own life, moving everything, definitely the universe conspires to give you people who, otherwise, where are you? Where am I? What's your profession? What's mine? We are all scattered. But it does conspire. It's only, I feel, rather, I'm convinced that my aspiration was not strong enough to get those people. I was somewhere floating midway. We all do that. you want to go to a party and you want to go back home and pray. No, it doesn't work. If the aspiration is one pointed and sincere, everything comes into place. So
That is what, that sincerity, yeah, that is what, yeah.
Chitra, all my so-called friends, mother made them leave this town.
Yeah.
There is nobody. Me, my one Bible, and the online. I'm even reading synthesis online. My books are coming from India, but that didn't hinder me.
Yeah.
I hate reading in in an iPad, but I'm absorbing so fast. There is a hunger in me to take more. And then if I find a quote, I send it to you. I send it to Taru. I send it to Monica. It will happen. You
Yeah.
will find. You will get people. In fact,
Yeah.
today I was going to tell you that when we have to finish reading, if we are on half a chapter and the remaining has to be finished, we should all coalesce and do it.
Yeah.
Because if you really want it, you will make the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's happening. Yeah, that is what the sincerity. Yeah. Thank you for this. Yeah.
No, I don't know whether this is the place for it, but once I heard something on gratitude that I would want to share and before closing. It was said that gratitude can also be Maya, because a lot of times we get so overwhelmed by what we are hearing towards the medium from which we are hearing that we forget what we heard in the pretext of expressing the gratitude. It's very odd thought, because we've always seen gratitude to be, of course, of the highest regard, but it just, was kind of a warning that don't lose your focus on what inspired you, and don't just, get totally overwhelmed by who is it coming from to express your gratitude, because you might just lose what was supposed to be, what you could take. So it like means nothing. It's like, but still I see that sometimes in me, and I'm like, oh my God, he just said this, or she just said this. And then I'm like, okay, wait a second, but what did she say? Did I understand? So that's also something, not in a negative way, but just that we should not lose the focus on what is being said to where we got from or how. Yeah. So if there's anything else we can share, otherwise I think we are done for this Friday. Yeah, Captain, anything from your end or?
No, nothing. Thank you.
Okay, have a good weekend. Thank you so much. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Taru.